Welcome to Impact AI. I'm your host, John Hodges. Today, we're diving into real stories behind logistics, how leaders got started, what wins they're proud of, and which strategies are working in this moment. Logistics and supply chain are the backbone of commerce, and the future will demand smarter, data driven, agile operations. I'm pleased to welcome Willow High, the Senior Business Development Manager of Air, Land, and Sea Express, a company with long-standing operations in both international and domestic freight and logistics. Willow has visibility into managing route networks, cross-border operations, and the complexities of real supply chains. Her work gives her a front row seat to what's working and what's not in the field today. Willow, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I love your introduction.
Well, to start, can you introduce yourself for our listeners? Tell us how you entered logistics and your path to your current role and kind of what drives you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in logistics for 15 years now. It was actually what I wound up entering into directly out of college, although it wasn't the career path that I had intended for myself. I graduated in 2008 when the economy was kind of in a crisis and found a place that was hiring and decided to check out what logistics was and haven't looked back. I do a little bit at this point follow the career path I had intended because I was a marketing major and I am in business development and do a lot of work with sales and even get into a little bit of our website design and things like that. Uh, but logistics is, I mean, it kind of sucked me in after I got into it because I have an analytical mind and am a problem solver by nature. And that's what it is. So every day is something a little bit new. In the position that I hold, I get to go out and visit a lot of manufacturers and distributors and energy companies and really just anybody that's looking to move a product, construction companies. Yeah, there's just a huge scope of different types of clients that you get to kind of learn a little bit about their industries when you work in logistics. And it's really interesting to me. So we go on site visits and figure out what their needs are and how they can be best served and, help them sort out their supply chain and their distribution systems and all of that. So,
Yeah. So, along your 15 plus years, uh, was there a defining project or a turning point that kind of changed how you led operations in supply chain?
a turning a pro I would say when I moved into actually, let me go back a little bit further. I started out in operations and I developed a love of international logistics when I was in operations and having to figure out challenging scenarios. There was a client that's actually, they were bought out and moved to a different location and are no longer based in St. Louis, but they specialized in engineering and manufacturing large mixing machines that were purchased by companies such as Pepsi, Coca-Cola, AkzoNobel. Um, and we had to expedite for them an oversized air shipment that was going to, what's the brewery, the Irish brewery that everybody knows about? I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but we had to expedite an air freight to Ireland for them. And I just had so much fun with it because it was going someplace cool. It was out of the norm. And
Was it
I had to
Guinness,
learn
maybe?
Guinness. Yeah, yeah. So they had to expedite to the Guinness plant in Ireland because they were trying to meet an installation date there. And uh, they were a smaller company, so it required a lot more. I had to learn a lot in order to help them understand how to create their documentation and what their HS codes were, which is the international codes that determine tariffs, which that's been a whole another thing in itself lately.
Bet.
But yeah, just doing that, I really developed a love of international transportation. And then moving out into sales was the next really defining moment, just because going out and visiting everybody in person. And I always, as a kid, really liked watching shows on Netflix, like The Way Things Work, where they show how things are built. Picture Picture on Mr. Rogers, if anybody can remember that,
Wow.
where it shows how a violin is made or things like that. And that is essentially my life now. I get to go and take plant tours and things like that. And it's really cool. And yeah, figure out problem solving, like I said.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's cool. So you started out in operations and then you did sales and now your title is business development. So what's some advice I guess you would give to managers, new managers, um, with your experience with just the complexity of everything? If you had to give advice to some new managers coming up in the logistics and supply chain, what would some advice be?
I would say being able to identify people's strengths and play to that and support them with, we talk a lot about SOPs in our company, to where there's structures to how things are done and making sure that people are well trained with clear direction. And while still kind of letting them have their own style and their own individuality and using their own problem solving skills and just making sure that people are placed in the right positions. You know, being a people person is really important, and I feel like any industry, you know, and just being able to identify what makes people tick, I guess.
Right, right.
Yeah.
No, great answer. Okay, so we'll move on to some other topics. You mentioned your success with fulfilling Guinness's demands. Looking back, what are some wins, I guess, that you're most proud of in your logistics and supply chain work?
Well, I always like doing the funky stuff. So we're actually in with quite a bit of Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies. And I manage a lot of national accounts. And a big portion of what I do is sort of strategic business expansion within larger accounts that, you know, have opportunity for continued development. Um, so I guess moving forward to those types of accounts to where we're growing on that type of a scale. Our business, by the way, I mean, we've been around since '84, but we're a mid-sized company. So we've grown substantially since I came onto the company. At the time I started, I think there was 5 employees total. Yeah. So where we're at now is it's pretty cool to be in a position where we're handling business for companies like Berkshire Hathaway and,
Yeah,
you know, ABB and just a lot of big name brands and things like that. Maybe not name brands to the general public
right,
because, you know, manufacturers aren't necessarily the type of companies that are visible on the consumer side. But they're supplying companies like Boeing and SpaceX, and St. Louis actually has a lot of cool manufacturers that are sending things out of here. Sky Zone is an account of ours. We're building trampoline parks all over the United States. Margaritaville, Bass Pro.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah,
that's something to be proud of right there. It's just
yeah,
how you've grown the business over the years.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so in your current operations, what processes or tools or strategies are giving you the best results? And it could be anything like cost savings, reliability, flexibility, but and in some of your processes right now, what seems to be working best?
I mean, it's all about customer service and reliability for us. working smarter, I guess, is a big part of it. We specialize in service sensitive freight and service sensitive industries. So things like hospitality, energy, aerospace, medical. Most of the products that we move they're not raw bulk materials or, routine shipments of pillows going from a distro warehouse to a Walmart storefront or something like that. It's usually specialized machinery or, store fixtures or some sort of equipment, power plant parts, things like that.
Yeah.
So, not to say that we don't do a little bit more basic stuff. I mean, the landscape industry, for example, is huge for us, and construction supplies and things like that are pretty big too. But even those too, a lot of them require time specific, date specific. It'll be last minute. So the type of clients that we're servicing, you've got to be competitive. It's a competitive industry. There's a lot of different logistics providers out there, but the type of clients that we're servicing want it to be easy for them to schedule and for them to know that when they reach out to us, they can trust that it's handled from there and they're not going to have to babysit or follow up. We do the babysitting and the following up on their behalf.
Right. Right.
Because we're all dealing with airlines and, truckloads and big distribution systems. So
Sure.
we operate as the company that manages making sure that all of those things happen for our clients the way that they're supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, what about real-time visibility? You often hear that as a buzz phrase, but how are you using data flows, tracking, and or dashboards to anticipate issues rather than just react to them?
That's a interesting question, actually. We have there's a very manual portion of what we do because of the fact that we're a 3PL and we offer a variety of different services. And something like LTL or small pack, where a shipment moves along and is scanned in through each terminal that it passes through, you have accessibility to more or less real-time information as it's moving along. Or if you're doing a truckload and you have GPS tracking on the driver, then you have that. But to get that to a position from what we can see to where the customer can see, we actually obtain all of the various forms of tracking that there are out there from the various types of carriers and modes of transportation that there are out there, and consolidate it into our website. So our website gives total visibility. Our customers are provided with a online login, and you can track it through a quick track as well with a reference number, but it doesn't have a lot of detail. But there's definitely a manual aspect to it because not every truck driver has GPS visibility. So there's also sometimes emailing the dispatcher and getting a response from them. Ocean tracking now there's better GPS on the vessels to some degree, but ocean tracking, there's definitely a manual process to where someone has to check on it themselves. I don't know of a way to connect to all of the different modes of transportation and make it so that it consolidates. I mean, that would be great if somebody can figure that out for us so we don't have to track them all ourselves. But we basically have a team of people that come in every morning, and the way that our system works is when a shipment is booked, it will show the next stage that it's supposed to be in, where something is supposed to happen. So say that it's supposed to deliver on X date, or it's supposed to arrive at the destination terminal on X date. It'll pop up onto a board, and our tracking team goes through it and is able to identify if it's where it's supposed to be. And if not, we get on to correcting it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Interesting. So when it comes to AI, where in your operation do you think AI or automation can deliver the greatest value right now?
Well, I hadn't even thought about it because I'm not part of the tracking team. But now that you mention it, if that might make them pretty happy.
Yeah.
But I think it would be really great if we had a little bit more visibility to pricing trends for various point to points in international air freight and international ocean freight based upon price per pound and price per cubic meter. We have a lot of details and visibility, and there's a lot of focus that's been done on tracking domestic pricing for truckloads, and LTL is, I mean, it's all based upon tariffs, so it's very, you can definitely figure, estimates on pricing for that. But um, it would be really cool if there was a system, something kind of like how DAT operates uh, for international air freight, because it can feel like it's all over the board, but I'm sure there's more consistency to it than
Right.
than what it looks like if you just had something running trends for you.
Yeah.
So
Excellent.
yeah.
Okay. A couple more questions for you. So, what are the roadblocks that you face? And it could be technical, cultural, infrastructure, or costs when it comes to trying to modernize logistic operations.
Working with the carriers, it's the people aspect. I mean, we do a lot with the airlines, and the airlines are dinosaurs in the way that they operate.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really that long ago that they made it so that you could use online bookings and online paperwork. We used to have to be sending in physical paperwork to create bookings along with drivers. It wasn't that long before that that they had to be typed onto a 3-page, the ones that have those gray sheets in the middle and make
Yeah.
make a copy. We had to get a program. We had to buy an electric typewriter and get a program on our computer that could take whatever we were typing on our computer and translate it onto the typewriter, because you have to have something that hits the
Unbelievable.
pages in order to create their 3-page papers that they required. So the airlines are archaic, and it
Yeah.
would be pretty cool if they would update. But other than that, another roadblock is, yeah, it's the carrier. I mean, it's consolidating so many different moving parts, I guess. It's not just the carriers. Customers all do things their own separate way, and we have thousands of different clients, and every logistics broker or 3PL is probably juggling a lot of different ways of doing things as well. There's not a lot of consistency to the way people format their emails, or I mean, some people still like to call things in.
Yeah.
um, and then when you're booking things with, say, like a truck driver, for example, there's a lot of the time a phone call aspect to that portion of it as well. Sometimes you can just email people. Sometimes there's a lot of people calling in if they're interested in a lane. Drivers will just call in, and it's kind of it's a live bid auction process sort of thing.
Yeah.
And um, so yeah, just consolidating all the different ways of communication makes it so that it's very, very challenging to find a way to streamline all of that into one smooth flow. It takes a person juggling things.
Right. I understand. Okay. And this will be our last question. So, as the landscape changes with trade rules, sustainability, new consumer expectations, perhaps, what strategic shifts or innovations are you planning for in logistics?
Hmm, that's a good question. Can you say it again?
Yeah, sure. So basically, just as you look into all the changes that's going on, it could be like you mentioned, tariffs were new due to the administration, or if there's have you noticed any new consumer expectations or stuff in sustainability? Like, are you having to? Is there anything that you're actively planning for in the future as we go into 2026, perhaps?
So a lot of what we're doing is pretty internal. Obviously, technology is a constantly evolving big thing. And as it gets better, people get used to getting things more quickly, and it allows us to supply things more quickly. Visibility. People expect a lot more visibility now than they did years ago. I would love for all of our drivers to be set up on GPS tracking so that we didn't have to work with calling dispatchers and things like that. And I think that that's something that we had discussed looking into. We would have to find a program that all of the different carriers would be willing to work with, though. So technology is definitely a big thing. A lot of it is behind the scenes that's being worked on right now, and it has a lot to do with vetting carriers and with compliance issues and with legalities and whatnot. When I started in the industry, people would work together on a handshake, and contracts are obviously becoming more and more important in today's market. And there's a lot of things happening. There's always some kind of giant lawsuit going on involving the big, large 3PLs and carriers and the FedExes and the CH Robinsons and things like that over um, trucks involving death and getting sued, or I mean, there's a lot of risks and liabilities in this industry. And so a lot of what we are doing are internal things to help mitigate that and streamline and smooth things out so that, we have the best insurances. I'm hoping that there's going to be soon in the future cargo insurance for 3PLs, because as it is currently, we do have trip insurance for purchase that we can purchase on a case-by-case basis and apply to a client's goods. But other than that, their insurance, they have to buy it themselves, or else it's covered by the carrier, and the carrier's insurance just varies completely from carrier to carrier. So all of the evolution of all of the legalities and the insurances and that type of stuff is, I think, really important for the future.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Trying to get everybody onboarded with customs directly so that they can have the ACH with customs, and we aren't left having to forward their tariffs to now, because there's like the 50% steel tariff, we've been having to front $800,000 tariffs for people importing like parts for power plants and things like that. So that's been fun.
Yeah, that can be a little unnerving, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, we're requiring prepayment for them right now just because that's a lot of money to extend, that's a lot of credit to extend to someone. And usually we have, extended payment terms, whereas customs requires payment terms in X amount of times. But they do have a system set up so that manufacturers and importers can have a line of credit with customs directly. We never had to use it because the United States didn't have high enough tariffs that anybody cared. We'd pay for a customer and just add it to their bill without it being any big deal. But now that we're looking at 50%, 30%, 20%, 15%, people will just rack up their credit and have none left to use with us in no time if they don't get set up differently from how they are. So that's been a big thing that we're working on, is teaching everybody about customs, because it used to just not be anything that anybody had to care about. We would just handle it. It was invisible to them. It was $125 charge. Right. And, that's it.
Yeah. Huh.
So
that's very interesting. And that, imagine that changed the landscape quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. So we've been having to do a lot of educating, and it's challenging too, because it's been adjusting so quickly that, I mean, actually, we're expecting a bunch of stuff to be finalized this Sunday, and then I'm going to have to send out a bulk email to everybody, letting them know to have their suppliers change the way that their commercial invoices are created a little bit, to try and give us the information that we need so that their tariffs are mitigated as much as possible.
Wow. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you again for sharing your story and your wins and what's working in logistics today. I think what resonates is that it's really less about having the perfect system and more about just continuous adaptation uh,
Yes,
data
definitely.
data driven decisions, perhaps, and then resilience for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Well, for our listeners out there, thank you very much for tuning in. And just know your playbook doesn't need to be perfect at day one. Just start with reliable processes, lean automation, and the feedback loops that help you learn and adjust. Thank you for tuning in to Impact AI with John Hodges. Until next time, stay curious, stay agile, and keep making an impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.